All right, guys. So now that we had a look at the project itself and about like changing the melody along the process, it's something that happens, and maybe you're close to a mixdown and you still feel like you need to change something. Um, it's always a good idea to just follow your gut feeling. If you feel like I need to change it, then by all means change it as we speak, because otherwise you're going to be on stage and you have a song and you feel like, oh, this melody could have been better, and that for the next 10 years. I've had that with a couple of songs, and I think it's good to just follow your own gut feeling. So I wanted to actually talk about a little bit more about the arrangement side of producing. Now, I opened up a project here. It is my latest collaboration with Armin van Buuren, which I'm a big fan of, by the way. It's one of these producers and DJs that I look up to since day one, and he has been so important for our industry as well. And I think this track also gives us the perfect example on how arrangement matters. And I'll show you and loop you through a couple of elements of this production, and also I'll try to tell you why we made the decision to do it like that. So the song is called I Need You to Know. You might have heard it, you might not have heard it. Let's first start off with the intro, because this is one of these things that some producers miss out on. Is you need some time to actually mix your record in from the last one. You know, for example, you have a drop of a song that you're playing, and the next up is your new production. You need some time to mix the record in. And again, it works with blocks. And in our sound, let's say it's 126 to 130 BPM, it's roughly like 15 seconds. And then that's what we call a block. And then another 15 seconds, then you know, okay, after 30 seconds, then the first breakdown is going to be. So we applied that actually in this song, and I'll show you how it looks like. The beginning of this sequence is actually just this. And what stands out, it's just some drums, some percussion, and it's a sub kick without too much low end in it. And then the next bar of 15 seconds, what changes is the kick drum is more full, it has a low end already, some extra elements of drums, some effects, and a build up going on, as you can see here. Okay. So I wonder, when you're watching this, what stands out at this point, because we could have started with the vocal right away here at 30 seconds, but we choose not to, and there's a good reason to do so. Some atmospheric sounds, some ambient. There we go. So maybe I hear you thinking like, okay, there must be a reason why they've done like that. Well, the reason why we do so is when you play a record like this and when you're on stage, people are moving, you know, they're dancing to the drop, jumping, whatever. Maybe they're, you know, grabbing a drink, you never know. But then they need to have this moment to catch a breath. And they need to have this moment, you know, to stand down, relax, okay, what's coming next? It really is the few seconds that matter for people, their minds, to switch to the next record, you see? So, yeah, it's really important when you make your production that people have some time to recuperate from the last drop and catch a breath before the actual record starts. Because when the record starts, you want people to be as fresh as possible, and you need to re-grab their attention like, hey, this is the new chapter, this is the new record. So we take a few bars to actually try to achieve that. Now, how long is that? Well, if you look at the Logic bars here on top, 17 to 25, it's roughly 15 seconds. Ambient noise, people start to make some noise, check out their phones, make a picture. There we go. So actually it's an additional 15 seconds for people to re-grab their attention and be ready for the next record. So what is playing between that little 30 seconds intro and the first chord that's playing? There's some basses that are playing. It's just basically to bring some tension to the room, you know? It's literally this. It's a filtered bass. That it kind of brings some extra ambient and vibe. Also, it functions as an introduction to that what's coming. There's some Atmos, not too much. Really, I'm gonna try to solo it out for you guys. Well, that together with the effects. There we go. And that's where the vocal starts. Now, then we have some pianos playing.
Believe your lies, angel in disguise. Now you're just trying to crawl. You build castles in the sand, now it's slipping through your...
And there's something else going on here, which is in the background, but maybe you'll hear it.
Castles in the sand, now it's slipping through your hands, and you're stuck right where you stand.
And there's a really good reason to add this little effect, because the human, as far as I know, they work very similar. So if one person starts clapping in the room, it's most likely that other people start clapping too. And especially on a festival, in a club where people are into the party and they're ready for the next thing, you really want to bring the tension up. And if I add a little bit of a clap, then it really feels like I'm the first person, you know, to introduce that clapping moment, which you really want to have when you're performing. So a good trick is just to just add that clap yourself in your production. This works very contagious when you're playing, because people are going to start to clap along, and especially if you're the one in the DJ booth that is also clapping to its own production, then you'll see that people start to copy and mimic that right away. And that is exactly what you want. So a really good reason to add in some claps and sometimes some ambient noise. And a really old trick of producers is also adding crowd noise to the record. And if you start listening back really old records, you know, like I'm talking about 12-year-old records, then you'll hear so much like crowd noise already in the record that it feels like you're part of it when it's playing on the radio. So these are all little small ambient tricks and you know, ways to get your people more connected to the record. So if we move on to the build-up.
Think you have to run, trust them. When the sky falls down, keep holding on to me. There's always time to build broken dreams. I need you to know.
Okay, so what does this build-up consist of, and why do I think it works? Now, it's not only me, obviously, this is also Armin. So everything that we show in this project, it really is combined forces. It really is not only me, and it's also not only Armin. We worked on this record with some really good artists. So this is also joint forces, guys. It's not just my knowledge or Armin's. We've been very busy on this record to get it right. But so I'm going to loop you through what is going on in the build-up of this record. I'm going to play you just track by track to give you an idea of how a build-up could look like, or maybe even sound like. Let's mute the vocal for a bit. Okay, so the entire build-up, moving on from the chorus, is only 15 seconds long. And that might look like a very short time, but sometimes, especially on the progressive house records, you'll have a 15-second build-up on the first breakdown, and you'll have a 30-second build-up on the second break, and the second drop. So it really doesn't matter. You have to feel like how it works for you, I would just suggest to not have your build-up any longer than 30 seconds, unless you're Eric Prydz, which actually can get away with everything, and everything that he does always sounds right too, and I really respect that from him as a producer. It's a really tough to have your record sound interesting with just a very few elements. So that is a really big accomplishment by him, I think. So getting back at this build-up, there's really a few elements playing only. So if I take away the vocal, you'll hear the melody that gets filtered in, and it feels like an introduction to the actual drop, and it's going to sound like this. Well, as you can hear, it's like an introduction to that what you can expect on the drop. And it's so important, because if I would take this away, which I can show you, then the drop is going to come out of the blue. And humans want to kind of know what's going on. So if I take it away, then yes, it's a big surprise, and we all love surprises. But on the dance floor, on a festival, it makes more sense if you kind of know what's coming. Look. Okay, that's the melody. You know, that doesn't work. You need your introduction. And again, this is also some advice that I give on this particular sound on Progressive House. If you make hip hop, if you make, you know, drum and bass, completely different rules, you know, and actually rules are there to be broken, but this is just my advice from my experience, that it works really well if you kind of introduce the sound a little bit. And if you take it out, it's just going to sound a little weird, and especially on this track. So introducing your sounds can work for you, and it can help your track to just grow, and it can also help it for people to understand what's going on. So what did we do? We literally filter the synths in, so the synths have a little bit of a introduction, as you can see here, done with an Endless Smile, works really well. But you can do it with equalizers, you can do it with filters, with whatever you like to use. As long as it feels like it's being introduced, you're good to go. So what else is going on? We have the chords that are already playing. They're the same ones as in the drop. Same thing, they're filtered in, as you can see. And they start a little earlier than the synths. And what you can hear also is that there's a sidechain from the drop, and there's no sidechain before the drop. And I think that is also a point that I really want to show you guys. You need your sidechain only at the drop. If you have your sidechain going on in the breakdown, then it feels like there's this little hump all the time that makes your breakdown feels restless. And you kind of want to get people, give the opportunity to take a breath for a second. So if you add a sidechain to your elements there, then it's going to feel like a little bit of a restless feeling, and you kind of want to get rid of that. So a good idea maybe is to just take out the sidechain, automate it like we've done here, so you make sure that your sidechain only starts working at the drop. So that is a good trick also to make your drop stand out from sidechain wise from the breakdown.